Remember when you bought a game and that was it? You took it home, played it, and you moved on. Maybe you'd play some New Game Plus, or maybe you would just play the game over and over again because it was the only game that you had, but I digress. There was no battle pass to complete, there was no horse armor to buy, no V-Bucks to hoard until a skin that you want finally comes back into the item shop. Oh my god, how did we get here? Well, I know a million answers just jumped into your head, but to get the full picture, we're gonna have to go back. And I don't mean back to Overwatch loot boxes or CSGO cases, and no, not even back to horse armor. Or that horse armor. We have to go back to 1981. Yes, even back in the era of Atari and the Intellivision, people still had a basic concept in their minds. I like this game, and I would like more of this game. Typically, that was answered by a little thing called sequels, but on PC, there was a game called Temple of Apsi. It was originally released in 1979, but in 1981, it received what was at the time a brand new concept. A new piece of software that you had to go out and buy, but still required the original game to play. Upper Reaches of Apsi was what was probably the first expansion pack for a game. More of the game that you love, but with new content, and without all of that complicated sequel development time. Eventually, expansion packs took off. Tons of PC games got them, no matter the genre. StarCraft, Diablo, Half-Life, they all take the core game that you love and add more content, whether it be new weapons, units, or storylines, without making it so you have to go out and buy a whole new game. Take The Sims, for example, a franchise famous, or maybe infamous, for its expansion packs. The original game released in 2000, and The Sims 2 released in 2004. A decently long wait for a sequel, but during that time, 7 expansions released, each adding substantial new content to the game, like pets, magic, vacations, and more? Also important to note is that these expansions were big deals. They were substantial releases. They got retail boxes and were sent to stores. That meant a lot of effort was put into these from all sides, which didn't really remain consistent later. Of course, all of this happened on PC. On console, things were moving a little differently. Adding content to one of these was a pretty big ask. That doesn't mean there weren't attempts, though. Sonic & Knuckles is a great example. The cartridge holds a game itself, Sonic & Knuckles, obviously, but using Sega's lock-on technology, you can slap Sonic 3 on it and play one of the best video games ever made. Plus, you can play Sonic 2 as Knuckles if you put Sonic 2 on the slot instead. But when it came to actually downloading extra content, things were still a ways off. Services like GameLine on the Atari 2600 and Sega Channel on the Genesis let you download games onto specialized cartridges, but these were complete games, not add-ons to games that already existed. PC beat consoles to the punch here, with the first game to provide downloadable content being the 1997 RTS Total Annihilation, where the developers, Cavedog, released new units and maps monthly for free. Just download the files and they would extract into the game files on your PC. It sounds so simple now, but kind of revolutionary for the time, especially because it was official and not a fan-made mod. And it wouldn't be long before consoles caught up. Kind of. In 1999, the Sega Dreamcast released, and it was the first console made with online connectivity in mind. Web browser discs were available, as well as keyboard and mouse accessories. Though the Dreamcast lacked one thing that PCs had that would make the whole DLC thing a little complicated. PC had hard drives that games were installed to, therefore there were files to add to and modify. The Dreamcast had no onboard storage, just 2 slots in the controller for VMUs, which were the console memory cards. That meant that any DLC made available would have to fit within a VMU. That means content wasn't really very big. Using Sonic Adventure as an example, there was a Dreamcast Launch Party DLC you could download, completely for free, that turned Station Square into a little celebration for, the console you just bought, I guess? This very bare-bones addition to a single area of the game took up 40 blocks on a 200-block VMU. 200 blocks is 128 kilobytes, by the way, just so you know how little space we were working with. that same VMU also had to hold your save data and any data for minigames you wanted to bring with you on the VMU. So I guess what I'm saying is that it was pretty lackluster. But still, being able to download new free content for your games was pretty cool. Even if getting both parts of one quest for Phantasy Star Online takes up half of your memory card.
You don't have enough memory in the memory card.
But these issues were short-lived when in 2001, the Xbox launched. The first console with a hard drive built right in, a whole 8 gigabytes of storage, and it had plenty of uses. Hold your save data? Sure. Rip your CDs to listen to while you play games? Yep. And of course, downloadable content. In 2002, when Xbox Live launched, it made online play on consoles mainstream, but it also brought the concept of not only DLC to the console masses, but paid DLC. A lot of DLC was free on Xbox, but Halo 2 map packs, for example, were $5. Battlefront 2 had a pack that added 4 remade maps from Battlefront 1 and 2 new heroes for another $5. But for those who just didn't have internet at the time, which was pretty common back in the day, some games got physical discs at retail with this new content, echoing the PC expansion packs. Put the disc in, install the content, and go ahead and play Halo 2 with brand new maps at your next LAN party. The Xbox also brought forth a practice that became more prevalent a little bit later. On-disc DLC. Content that was already done and printed onto the disc that you bought at retail that you had to pay for online to gain access to. Counter-Strike is a pretty big example to me because Office, one of the most iconic maps in all of Counter-Strike, was made and put on the disc for the Xbox version of Counter-Strike. But you couldn't play it unless you paid for it on Xbox Live. Games like this, though, were few and far between on the original Xbox, but the next generation? Oh boy, the next generation.
Are you looking forward to this Xbox 360?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting a free one tonight.
The 7th generation of consoles is when all hell broke loose. The 360, PS3, and Wii all had online storefronts, and while that meant buying smaller games or retro titles became way more common, it also meant that extra content for games you already own became more common as well. And I know what you're thinking. There was no DLC on the Wii, I would remember that. And for most games, you were right. But if you were a rhythm game fan, then you may remember shelling out 200 Wii points for a new song on Rock Band or Just Dance. And to be honest, at the time, it seemed fair enough. Developers weren't sure how much to charge for these new small bits of content, and consumers weren't really sure how much they were willing to pay for them. Yeah, $5 for a pack of new Halo maps? I could probably get $5 of enjoyment out of that. Same with $1 or $2 on a new Guitar Hero song. Play it over and over again to FC it? Sure, why not? How about $2.50 for horse armor? Yeah, we had to talk about this eventually. It was mocked then and it's mocked now, but to play devil's advocate for just a second, Bethesda was one of the first to offer DLC on the 360, and they were just feeling it out. A mostly cosmetic add-on for a fairly low price, it seemed like an okay choice to test the waters. If the gaming community banded together and didn't buy it, then surely Bethesda would get the message. Oh! Look, it's not like they didn't also make good DLC for Oblivion. Shivering Isles was amazing. A proper expansion that you could just download. No need to go out and buy a physical copy. Though, you still could if you didn't have internet.
Fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
But for every good game that had a major expansion releases DLC, it seemed like there were 20 other games that were making the worst possible choices. You would get something truly amazing like The Witcher 3 with Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine, and then you would turn around and have Mass Effect 3 rip an entire character out of the base game and make him day one DLC that was shipped on the disc. Assassin's Creed 2 literally skips sequences 12 and 13, which were the penultimate chapters of the game, then offered them as DLC a few months after launch for $4 and $5 respectively. And all of Street Fighter Cross Tekken's DLC characters were done and shipped on the disc for you to unlock with a $20 purchase at a later date. And we know they were done because hackers managed to completely unlock them all without paying for them. People got furious with this practice pretty quickly. I remember tons of YouTubers I liked back in the early 2010s being very vocal about how this was a very, very bad thing happening. But while Tekken 7 charged for frame data and Total War Warhammer charged for blood effects, there was something more insidious blooming. And to see it, we'll have to head back over to the PC. Do you like my hat? I got it randomly out of that box. It's September of 2010. Valve introduces the Man Economy update to TF2. Team Fortress 2, a $20 game, now had an in-game store as well as crates. These crates could be opened with a key that you had to buy with real money and would give you a random item. Sometimes cosmetics like hats, and sometimes weapons that had actual real effects on gameplay. This fucking sucks. It's gambling, and not only that, it's gambling in a game that you paid for already. And console gamers, I know you're feeling left out, but don't worry, because FIFA had your back with Ultimate Team, which was actually DLC for a FIFA game in and of itself, which is fantastic. Instead of funny hats and guns, it was cards of soccer players, buying packs with real money and hoping that you would get the players you want randomly out of them. It didn't take long for this practice to spread. Valve's own CSGO got cases in 2013, which started a massive black market that Valve seems to not care about at all. Overwatch, which launched in 2016, had loot boxes and other microtransactions at launch. And dear God, Star Wars Battlefront 2. Battlefront 2 released late in 2017, and it had loot boxes that had direct effects on your gameplay and progression. Massive microtransactions for in-game currency to get more loot boxes, and Darth fucking Vader was locked at the start of the game? Thankfully, these features were ripped from the game before its proper launch thanks to Disney forcing EA's hand, but it was too little too late. This controversy was big enough for governments of nations like Belgium and the Netherlands to start looking into loot boxes and their ties to gambling. So much for a sense of pride and accomplishment. But luckily for the absolute greediest in the gaming industry, 2017 had one last trick up its sleeve. Literally weeks after the failure of Battlefront 2, Fortnite entered its second season and introduced the Battle Pass. In addition to its item shop, players could now purchase a pass that would allow you to unlock cosmetics simply by playing. That is, as long as you played enough to finish it in time. This FOMO-driven microtransaction machine that Epic had created with the Battle Pass spread like wildfire. It's hard to see a game these days without one, and it's not hard to see why. Call of Duty used to make its money by releasing new map packs every few months until the next game came out. Now these maps are free while being subsidized by people rushing to unlock Seth Rogen in the Battle Pass. By the way, people bought Black Ops 6 for full retail price, and this Battle Pass is in it. Not a free-to-play game like Fortnite, $70. Even companies that used to do expansions well have fallen. Look at games like The Sims 4 and Diablo 4. Both series had great histories with expansion packs releasing for reasonable prices that added substantial content to their respective games. Now EA is trying to squeeze every cent out of an 11-year-old game. And Diablo has a horse that costs more than the fucking game does. Remember 5 minutes ago when horse armor used to cost less than a fucking McChicken? And yes, there are still studios out there doing it right. Phantom Liberty for Cyberpunk 2077 has gotten fantastic reviews, and Insomniac's Spider-Man had a very solid post-launch DLC storyline. Even Destiny seems to be doing a decent enough job as long as you ignore the whole making some of your old DLC unplayable thing. DLC and microtransactions have gotten out of control. After 20 years of people going, who would buy this, and vote with your wallets, this is where we've ended up. You don't just buy a game, put it in, and play it anymore. Not without the game hounding you at least 20 times within the first 5 minutes for your credit card information. But even still, after all of this, all I can really keep saying is vote with your wallets. I mean, you're not gonna buy all of this Train Simulator DLC, are you? The trains look really pretty, okay?